I heard my alarm clock ringing. I hope we get a face full of panties tonight. Today. Dragged to my awareness by the harsh sound, I woke up. Is it morning? After that, the conversation had gotten repetitive as usual. I was greedy in the morning without even having talked about any other way I could check. I reached out to stop my alarm clock, and while I was at it, I grabbed my glasses at my bedside. As I slowly put them on, I could feel the cold of the morning air as the frames made contact with my face. Phew. Though I managed to sit up, my body felt heavy, and I didn't feel like moving any further. Just then, I heard the sound of the door unlocking. I used to get startled by that, but I had gotten used to it after almost 2 years. Just as expected, Saki opened the door and came in without permission.
おはよう兄さん、起きてたのね。
And soon you'll be checking her panties without permission, even if she gave you permission in the dream, but she won't remember what she told you in the dream, even if it was the real her. Morning, Saki. Please at least ring the doorbell.
それで起こしたら悪いじゃない。
I woke up around this time anyway, so I didn't see the problem in ringing it.
それに起きちゃったら、兄さんの寝顔が見れないでしょ？
I have nothing but objections. But not bothered in the slightest. Saki set the convenience store bag with breakfast in it on the table as usual. When she bent over, the hem of her skirt rose, and I could see her thighs clearly. Her underwear. I remembered our conversation and grew curious. Wait, doesn't it make me a terrible brother to be curious about my sister's underwear?
兄さん？どうしたの？
No, Toru. It won't make you a terrible brother. It will make you a brother that is very common in visual novels. That's one way to put it. Sure. She brushed up the hair that had fallen in her face when she bent over and looked back at me. I grew flustered. I wonder if she noticed. I had been looking at the lines of her legs and hips. Oh, I'm just a little tired.
なーに？また悪い夢でも見たの？
Yeah, you were there. Or supposedly you were there. I felt puzzled at the way she said this. Technically, yes, but...
どんな夢でも夢は夢でしょ？まあ、兄さんの場合、疲れてるのは仕方ないと思うけど。
When I got exhausted in my dreams, no matter how much sleep I got, I didn't feel like moving. But Saki seemed to find it strange that I wasn't getting out of bed, so she walked over to me. Saki? She put her knee on the bed and her hands on my forehead and her own.
熱はないみたいだけど。いつもより調子悪いの？
Well, I'm sure he didn't feel hot when he collapsed in the classroom, so... No. It's just that I had a bad dream again. I'll get up. I can get up. I couldn't tell Saki that I was troubled because she had told me to check her underwear in a dream. Hey, Saki... For a moment, I thought that maybe if I explained the situation, she would let me lift her skirt up. That thought crossed my mind.
なーに兄さん。鍵を返せとか勝手に入るなって言うならもう聞き飽きたけど。
It looked like Saki didn't remember the dream, so there was no reason to mention it. No, it's nothing. What disturbed me the most was that I had a feeling that if I asked to see up her skirt, Saki would probably let me do it. Is that really a disturbing... Wait, is that really what disturbs you? Listen, Toru. You act like Saki is 100% into LARPing as your little sister and isn't only doing it to... What's... How would I say it? To satisfy your needs, right? The only reason Saki is doing this is because you aren't comfortable with letting her just be your childhood friend and potential love interest. Right? You admitted it. You admitted to it after her dream, right? You fucking told her that you were a terrible person, and everyone agreed, including her and you, and that's why you didn't kiss her, and that's why you're still LARPing as a big brother. I don't know. And I didn't know what would happen if I actually checked it.
まあいいわ。早く顔洗ってきてね。
Saki got down from the bed, unconcerned. Watching her go, I felt like I had just let an opportunity pass me by. No, wait, what am I thinking? And you really shouldn't come in without permission. Saki turned around and stuck out her tongue slightly. Well then, this is still interlude 2, so surely we will eventually see Saki's panties. Blue string panties with a ribbon in the middle and matching bra. Because Saki had told me that, it was impossible for me not to think that was probably the underwear she was wearing right now. But imagining that just made me a silent lech. An indescribable feeling of regret and guilt fell over me, but not from the panties, from the other things that he's done to her, or made her do, or something. Listen, it's been a while since we've gone through Saki's dream.
何？さっきからこっちをチラチラ見てるけど。
I don't exactly remember the conversation that he had with Saki after the dream. Nothing. Saki sometimes looked up at me, apparently wondering why I kept looking at her.
今日どこかおかしいかしら。いつも通りのつもりなんだけど。
Saki reached for her head to see if she had any bed hair, though that wasn't the reason I was looking. No, there's nothing strange about you. She was the same as usual. Did that mean she was always wearing the sort of underwear she said last night? Come to think of it, I had the feeling I'd seen blue underwear on her before. It wasn't that I'd been trying to see it, but I'd ended up doing so, because it had been exposed. I mean...
なーに？さっきから変な兄さん。そういう態度取られると余計に気になるんだけど。何を隠してるの？
Let me continue hiding it.
ダメよ。兄さんが私に隠し事とか許されると思ってるの？
Why not? Hey, wait. I have a perfectly good reason why I can't tell you.
へえ、理由。恥ずかしいとかそんなことじゃなくて？
Oh, he is incredibly embarrassed, but, well, embarrassment was part of it, and I thought that was a fine reason in and of its own, right, but it's that if you know what I'm troubled over, you'll understand why I'm worried.
何それ？それってもしかして、私も兄さんが気にしてることを私が知ってるってこと？
Well, pretty much. I nodded vaguely. If the Saki that came to the dream was just a character from someone's dream, then there was no way she'd know about it. But Saki seemed to realize something.
もしかして、夢絡みかしら？
That's not a very good realization, considering that any time Toru would act weirdly, it always is going to have to do with his dreams. So this is just the natural conclusion any character would go to if they knew Toru for a long enough time. That's right. Saki grew a nod. Grew a nod? It gave a nod.
そういえばさっき、夢見が悪かったとか言ってたけど、まさか私の夢を見たからとかそんな理由じゃないでしょうね。
I was tired for a different reason. You'll understand that when you remember too. It wasn't about you, but you were there. Saki had tired me out quite a bit too, but I couldn't give her any more hints than I already had. Saki remembered the dream. I didn't know what she would say to me. If she tried to force me to check it, then I had a feeling that I would just freeze with regret.
なんだか兄さん一人で分かった気になってるのは気に入らないけど。いいわ。思い出せって言うなら思い出してあげるから。そうしたらきっちりその態度のわけも聞かせてもらうわよ。
If possible, I'd rather you didn't remember it. It didn't have anything to do with Maya, and I wanted Saki to forget it forever. Then again, if she had forgotten it, it probably wouldn't be easy for her to remember again anyway. Yeah, it would probably be fine.
なんだか余裕ぶってるのも気に入らないわ。
Give me a break. Saki gazed at me like she wanted to say something. Then lunchtime came. My last morning class had dragged on a little, so I arrived at the science preparation room a little late. When I did, I found the atmosphere heavy. Hello, Club Prez. What did you do to Saki?
私は何もしてないわよ。
That was definitely not the right way to say that sentence. They had apparently been waiting for me because the tiered lunchbox Saki had dropped off hadn't been touched. But the bento master sitting before it, Saki, looked incredibly sullen as she sipped away at her strawberry milk. The fact that she was making a sucking sound with her straw was proof enough that she was in quite a bad mood.
そういうトールこそ、サキちゃんに何かしたんじゃないの？
So it's my fault after all? I said something pretty suggestive, different S word, this morning, so maybe she was still thinking about it.
やっぱり思い当たる節があるのね。
Well, you could say that. But would that really make her this mad?
大丈夫よ。兄さんが悪いわけじゃないから。
Saki put her empty pack down next to her. Saki put her empty pack down next to her and let out a sigh. Thanks to the Lord of Strawberry Milk, her anger seemed to have subsided a bit. Club Prez and I breathed a sigh of relief.
それに、兄さんが原因なら、ご飯食べるの待ったりしません。
I see. That's good. Well, not good, but for the time being, Club Prez and I prepared lunch as usual. We made coffee by boiling water in the beaker and spread out the tiers of the lunchbox.
そうなんだ。私、てっきりトールがサキちゃんに何か隠してるせいかと思ったんだけど。
You hit the nail on the head with that one, didn't you? Saki gave a slight reaction to those words.
弥生先輩は覚えてるんですか？兄さん、夢で何かあったらしいんですけど、教えてくれないんです。そう、なんだったかしら。私もちゃんとは覚えてないのよね。
Club Prez looked at me and giggled. Whether she remembered or not, she was really awful. Didn't you say that was unrelated? So what did happen? If there was anything I could do, I would have done it. Even if I couldn't, I might have been able to help her before the situation escalated further. I asked about the source of Saki's bad mood, the way a brother would to his little sister.
今朝、兄さんと別れた後、机の中にこんなものが入ってたのよ。
Saki pulled an envelope out of her bag on the table and set it down. It didn't look like something from a school, nor did it look like something passed between girls. What's that? I pretty much knew what it was, but I asked anyway.
もしかしなくても、ラブレターかしら。ええ、そうです。
Saki let out another bored-sounding sigh. Club Prez looked at me, her eyes wide with curiosity, like that of a cat's. At least she deserved credit for not letting out a teasing cat call. Why is Club Prez the one acting like a cat when she's a rabbit? Can't believe it.
あら、お兄ちゃんどうする？気になるの？ねえ、気になるの？
Sorry to rain on your parade, but this isn't something new. Club Prez had a picture-perfect look of disappointment on her face.
そうね。 こういうのもらったのなんて初めてじゃないし。
And to answer your question, Yayoi, no, I'm not worried because I know Saki only has eyes for me. Even if Toru dates another character, Yayoi will only have eyes for him. There was one time she received one when I was there.
その猛者はどこの誰よ。
He seemed to think that I was really her brother.
好きな相手のこともよく知らないのね。情報不足だわ。ええ、そう言って追い返しました。
I thought it was a bit strange for her to say it herself. At that time, Saki had said we were siblings, but we acted more like we were boyfriend and girlfriend. And that's what Saki and... actually, that's what both of you want to actually act like. Right? Toru is trying his hardest not to act like her fucking boyfriend by laughing as a big brother, and Saki has to capitulate and isn't allowed to act like a girlfriend and is forced to act like a little sister because of fucking Toru. It was because of incidents like this that weird rumors circulated around us in both the main and annex buildings. Still in a bad mood, Saki put some food into her mouth.
今までにあったことなら、どうしてそんなに機嫌悪いの？読んでみればわかります。
She pushed the envelope, or rather the stationery, towards us.
こういうの、私たちが勝手に見てもいいの？いいんじゃないですか？兄さんには少なからず関係のあることですし。
I was doubtful whether it was really okay, but since it had to do with me, I opened the letter inside the stationery. Despite her misgivings, Club Prez moved her face closer, coffee in hand. Dear Saki Hasuno, Sama, I guess. That letter, which began very normally, was honestly kind of pathetic. Well, how should I put it?
生地、まともな文章を書けているからこそ痛々しいわね。
Come on, man. You're fucking blue balls in me here with all of this fucking shit that you're telling me about and not showing me. You know, I understand this is a visual novel, but show don't tell is still a very fucking a very important literary device to use. There you go. That I don't know why I was struggling to say the words, but like, you know, I would have loved to see the dreams that, you know, Toru and Saki experienced, or Alice and Toru experienced. Maybe not the ones Alice and Yayoi experience, because this is through Toru's perspective, right? But in the same vein, I would very much like to see what the letter wrote, what the letter said. Oops. We finished reading, and with a feeling I couldn't quite describe, I returned the letter to the envelope. Okay, yeah, no. It wasn't that there was anything wrong grammatically, or that he needed to study Japanese more. In fact, for a letter, it was terribly neat and tidy. I wasn't sure I would be able to write it as well of a letter, even if I were told to. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to read it either, but its contents were, how should I say, it's pretty pretentious. Though I wasn't good at reading and writing, oh, me too. And though it wasn't written in a way that you wouldn't notice it at a glance, the whole thing was pompous enough that you couldn't help but notice. Even I noticed.
私から見ると、そんな気づかないレベルどころか、えげつないほどいやらしい手紙だったんだけど。
Like, it's all well and good that you're describing the writing styles of the person who wrote the letter, but like, wouldn't it have been better for me to actually read it myself? Dickhead. But Club Prez gave me a concerned look. As we'd been reading, Saki had been working on the contents of her lunch. I was pretty hungry too, so I started digging in. What's wrong, Club Prez?
いや、その程度で済ますんだと思って。
あの手紙、結構トールの悪口書いてあったでしょ？
He was bad-mouthing me, but it was all true, wasn't it? It would be one thing if it was unfounded slander, but it was true that I was stuck to my sister, and that I was a borderline invalid who caused problems for the people around me. So I didn't think it would make sense for me to get mad about it.
兄さんがこういう態度になるのも頭にくるわね。
If the people around us are going to get angry, then it is what it is.
さきちゃんがここまで不機嫌なのもなんかわかるわ。
Club Prez looked at me and Saki like we were hopeless siblings before starting to dig into the bento as well.
兄さんをバカにするのも許せないけど、それ以上にそうやって人より上に見せたがるそのやり方が気に食わないのよ。
相性としては最悪みたいね。
I've never seen a guy who seemed compatible with Saki as she is now. When I said that, the two of them shot me an annoyed look. Yeah, I wonder why. You literally just told Saki to her face that she isn't that she isn't compatible with anyone. Meanwhile, you're fucking sitting across the table as the only one compatible with her, I guess. You don't have to look at me like that. I've known Saki for a long time, so of course I'd be able to get along with her.
ま、兄さんのことは今は置いておくとして。それでさきちゃん、どうするの？
本来なら無視するんですけど、これじゃそれも生ぬるいかしら。
You gotta find the guy, or I guess go to the meeting spot wherever he probably said to meet him, and then rip the letter up right in his face. I guess. At a glance, Saki looked almost like that of a sheltered maiden. The sight of her twirling her hair made for quite a pretty picture. That was only if you didn't know what she was thinking, though. I don't think you would, but don't overdo it, okay?
スルーなとは言わないのね。
I don't see the point. Why do I have to be so considerate towards someone who wrote a letter that made me angry? It wasn't like I was pissed off, but this wasn't the sort of person you needed to be considerate towards. If Saki felt like taking action, then who was I to get in her way? Just then, I saw Saki looking at me with the tips of her chopsticks still extended towards her mouth. What bad manners.
そうだ、兄さんを連れて行こうかしら。
I don't want to go.
連れて行ってどうするの？
どうすればこのプライド高そうな相手の鼻をへし折れると思いますか？
Don't talk to Club Prez about that. She really might inflict some new trauma onto him.
人を何だと思ってるのよ。失礼ね。そこまでするほどの相手じゃないでしょ？
She didn't say that she couldn't do it. I shivered at the attitude. Anyway, I'm not going. And if you're going to refuse, then cut them down cleanly.
わかってるわよ。逆恨みとかされると面倒だし。
Saki sighed. I trusted that she wouldn't do anything unnecessary.
逆恨みされた場合、その矛先が向かうのはトールだものね。
She's not wrong. Please don't say that. It conjures up bad memories of other times that Saki retaliated against someone who was confessing to her in front of you. Seriously, I had experienced something similar once before. After school, classes ended and I visited the science lab club before returning to my apartment. When I did, something strange happened. When I inserted the key and turned it, I didn't feel any resistance. That was strange. I was sure I had locked it when I left. Huh. Normally, one would think there may have been a robber or something. I was pretty sure it wasn't, so I opened the door without much concern. Is it Takanashi? I'm home.
おかえりなさい、兄さん。
Okay, listen, the only reason I didn't say Saki first was because of how dramatic he was being. Right? It's like, Oh, the I turned the key and didn't feel any resistance. That means someone is in here. Obviously the first thought would be Saki, I guess, but he was being so fucking dramatic about it that the idea that Saki would be here before Toru, I guess, didn't really. It slipped my mind. Sure enough, Saki was in my apartment. Normally, she would have been sitting on the sofa, but today she was lying on my bed for some reason. You'll get easier access to her panties. She probably took care of things with the guy who gave her that letter. Did something happen?
別に。いつも通りすっぱり切り捨ててきただけよ。
Though that's what she said, she still seemed grumpy as she lounged around on my bed with a portable game console in hand. I could hear the jaunty music of a puzzle game coming from the console. Even as I took off my coat, Saki didn't move from where she laid. If you want to talk about it, I'll listen.
まあ、面白い話ではなかったけど、兄さんにみっともなく愚痴るほどのことでもなかったわ。
I see. I thought that maybe she was down because something had happened when she went to turn the guy down. I thought that was the reason she came to my apartment.
ええ。この後もしつこいようだったらまだ考えるけど、もう関係もない相手だし。
Well, if she's saying that, then that's fine. Did it mean she was confident enough that she was able to say he had nothing to do with her? But if she was even slightly worried about something, she'd probably say so. So, Saki, why are you on my bed? Why are you on my bed? Although she had a key, it was rare for her to come in when I wasn't here. Okay, so I'm not the only one who was thinking... Actually, no, his first thought was Saki, so you know what, never mind. When she did, it was always because she wanted to complain, or she was thinking of something unpleasant.
それが、何か兄さんとすることがあったはずなんだけど、全然思い出せなくて。
Saki looked at me from where she was on the bed. I gave an involuntary start and wondered if she noticed.
ねえ、兄さん。私と夢で一体どんな話をしたの？
Okay, so there's, I'm kind of trying to, the conversation that happened in the dream where Saki brought up that the version of Saki in the dream and this version of Saki are two different people, right? That wasn't really the start of when I was thinking that, right? I've had that thought before, right? But ever since that conversation, I've been kind of tallying certain sentences that she says, or certain sentences that Toru has said to determine whether or not one or the other is true. That's a very bad way of me saying it, but essentially what I'm saying is, I've got two tables, one where it's Saki and Dream Saki and real life Saki, quote unquote real life Saki are the same, and one where they're different. One of the sentences, specifically one that Toru said, that would lead to me thinking that they're two different people, is the sentence where Toru where Toru says that he may have seen those panties on Saki before. Right? So maybe he subconsciously thought about Saki wearing those panties and, Dream Saki suggesting that she will be wearing those panties. But on the other end, you've got something like this. You got a sentence like this. I'm only using examples, right? I'm not going to say every sentence that made me list off, made me tally one or the other. But you've got this kind of sentence that makes me think dream Saki and real life Saki are the same, because now she's bringing up that she remembered that there was a conversation between Saki and Toru, but she doesn't remember the contents of the conversation. But at the same time, she might only be saying this because she inferred from how Toru was acting at the start of the day and through to lunch that they had a conversation in the dream, and she's kind of just saying this to make him think that she might be remembering the contents of the dream, but just needs Toru to fill in the blanks, even if she doesn't actually remember what happened in the dreams, because they're different people, right? Very, very confusing way of me talking about it, but even though you don't. I press space, fuck. I told you, I'm not going to say anything until you remember yourself. I went to get a change of clothes. Saki saw me pass by and changed the direction she was facing without getting up from laying on her stomach. She followed me with her eyes as I moved around like a dog or cat that was lying down.
ねえ、兄さんが隠してるのって大事なことじゃないの?
For the time being, it's not that important. It wasn't about Maya, so it was just a dream. You waited because you were worried about that. When I took my clothes off a hanger and looked at Saki, I saw them. Because she'd been rolling around on the bed, her skirt had gotten pulled up, and her butt was almost completely exposed. Blue, thin as a string on the sides. I couldn't see if there was a ribbon on the front. It seemed like there wasn't much fabric to them because of that. Even though she was slender, I was able to see her butt quite well. Her underwear seemed to be of fairly good quality. The material was thin and stuck to her body, so I could see the shape quite clearly. Saki didn't appear to notice, and she gave me a strange look when I immediately turned away. But she must have realized from how I was acting, because of the edge of my vision. From the edge of my vision, I saw the corners of her mouth raise into a smile. She looked just like a cat who had spotted its prey.
どうしたの、兄さん。なんでこっちを見てくれないの?
You know exactly why. I seem to remember there being some black tea left. I knew perfectly well that wasn't a natural response, but I ignored Saki and headed for the kitchen.
何を恥ずかしがってるのよ。別に兄さんになら見られてもいいのに。
I know you don't care, but it's not good on Toru's conscience because he's fucking a bitch. What are you talking about, Saki? I didn't see anything. No, she knew I had seen them. It was my fault for getting embarrassed and looking away. So I had no choice but to pretend I hadn't seen anything before Saki said something else. Rather, I couldn't think of anything else to do. For now, I decided to really boil some water so I could drink something to calm myself down. Just then.
さっきの角度だと、リボンがついてたかどうかは見えなかったんじゃないの?
Another tally for the dream Saki and real Saki are the same. The kettle slipped from my hand and fell into the kitchen sink. What? It is a very conspicuous CG. You're playing a dangerous game here, Saki. When I turned around, Saki was right behind me and looked up at me with a very, very nice smile on her face. I tried to back away, but my back was already pressing against the kitchen.
確か夢の中で今日着る予定の下着を兄さんに教えたと思うんだけど、きちんと覚えてるかしら?
So she's slowly starting to remember the conversation they had, I guess. See, unlike with how she was talking about, how Dream Saki and Toru were having a conversation, right? That could have been inferred, but she's getting more detailed with the conversation that they were having, specifically to do with how Dream Saki will tell Toru that they are the same person. Saki pinched the hem of her skirt and lifted it up a little at a time. If her hands went a little higher, I ended up seeing the other side. Saki, don't you understand what you're doing right now?
同じ夢を見ているかどうかの確認よね。
Okay, remember, don't worry. There's that there. That's enough, isn't it? I took Saki's hand from her skirt, forcing her to drop it.
やだ、兄さんってば強引なんだから。
Don't say it like that. Who was it that was trying to use an even more forceful method? I was completely confused. There was a sense of longing, a feeling of panic, and a tinge of excitement for having seen something that felt wrong to see. As though she knew what I was thinking, Saki peered up at me joyfully.
こんなこと許すの、兄さんだけなのよ。
You don't have to let me see so easily either. I let go of her hands and her expression stayed the same, but she seemed annoyed.
そんなに見たくないの？
No, well, it's not that I don't want to. It's... Wait, what are you doing? Why couldn't I lie and say that I didn't want to see? But for some reason, Saki was undoing her buttons. Okay.
見たいならいいじゃない。上もお揃いって言ったでしょ？
Like I said, you're playing a very dangerous game here. Showing underwear is fine. Probably. Actually, you know what? Just like when I, change the opacity of the text box to just in case I had to censor something, I'm gonna do it again, right? That's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna change the opacity again, make it opaque, make it completely opaque, just in case I have to censor something. That's not it, okay? You know what I mean.
二人っきりだものね。何があっても邪魔も入らないし、妹の下着姿に兄さんってば興奮するんだ。私、どうなっちゃうのかしら。
That's not the point. No, fine. Let's say that it is.
兄さんのエッチ。
Also, she said that her panties and bra would be blue, but they aren't blue. They are white. Why are you still undoing your buttons while you say that? Apparently, teasing me was too much fun because she didn't stop. Uh-huh. And so I was able to confirm that she had a matching bra. Even the part about there being ribbons on the front was the same. There were even strings on either side, and it looked like it would fall off if one of them came undone. Why was there a transition? They were just combining this part. They were combining the first part of the CG, which was her lifting up the skirt, and the second part of the CG where she undid the buttons on her top to show her bra. Right. Very provocative look on her face when she has that pose. But unfortunately for her, I can't use it as a thumbnail. And even if I did use any part of that CG as the thumbnail, it would have to be the one part where she doesn't show either panty or bra. I was on my knees next to my bed with my upper body sprawled out on it.
ほんと、この程度で大げさなんだから。
Saki said in annoyance as she sat on the bed and fixed her disheveled clothes. I swear I hardly touched her. All I did was grab her hands to try to stop her. Even now, Saki's feet were in front of me, And if she opened her legs a little wider, I would probably be able to see inside her skirt. And if you asked, she would probably spread her legs. Well, I did see it a little earlier. What is it with you intentionally showing me your underwear? It wasn't an appropriate thing for an adolescent girl to do.
結局見せるんだから、抵抗しないで見ちゃえばよかったじゃない。なんでそんなに嫌がるのよ。
I told you before, I'm a guy too. We were alone in my apartment with no one to disturb us. I wasn't of such a noble mind that I could say that my steadfast resolve definitely wouldn't have wavered.
男って、そういう意味で？
Still slumped over, I gave a slight nod. I was afraid to look up. Saki patted me on the head.
そっか。そうなんだ。
So please stop casually doing stuff like this. I'm serious.
どうしようかしら。
When I looked up cautiously, I was relieved that Saki was now wearing all of her clothes. I was worried about what would have happened if she got carried away and stripped down to nothing when I wasn't stopping her.
だけど、私は覚えてなくても、やっぱり兄さんと同じ夢を見てるのね。
Ah, yeah, looks that way. It had been turmoil for me, but at least we figured that out. So it hadn't been for nothing. I had been worried if it could have been true, but even if she didn't remember it, we were having the same dreams. It seemed to be a good thing that we knew that now. However, well, now you understand why I was tired this morning, right? Saki had seen Alice, and I hardly able to move from the sofa, or so I thought.
ほんと、下着の話したくらいで、あんなに疲れてるだなんてしょうがないんだから。何よ、違うって言うの？
Didn't I collapse with Alice? Saki's expression darkened from the rather composed look she had until now.
兄さん、アリスさんと疲れるまで一体何をしてたの？
I told you of the dream. Do you want to remember the part about the underwear?
何よ、一体何があったの？そもそもどうして夢の中で下着の話になんてなったのよ。
That was all your fault. In the end, whether we had the same dream or not, it didn't look like I'd be able to escape outrageousness like this. Well, that's why you don't tell her about stuff that happened in the dream. Chapter 4, Polar Opposites. What a weird fucking interlude.
別に、私のことなんて誰も知らない。だから私がどんな歌を歌おうが、らしいとからしくないとか思われることはない。だから、私はその時々に歌いたいと思った歌を歌う。伝えたいことなんてない。ただ歌いたいだけだから。返事なんて期待していない。一方通行上等。むしろ戻ってくるなんて勘弁してほしい。そんな私に話しかけてくる人がいる。そんな人たちに、私は一つだけ聞きたいことがあった。ねえ、どうしたらあなたはゆっくり眠ることができるようになるんですか
It was December, and second semester was almost over. Once the semester ended and winter break began, we would have Christmas, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day in quick succession. But before that, we students had exams waiting for us. If you botched those up, then your year-end events would be filled with supplementary classes and assignments. In Suikyo Academy, you could usually advance to the next grade through the escalator system, but if your test scores were bad, there were various things you had to do, so you didn't flunk. I placed my mechanical pencil on my desk and stretched until I could hear my spine popping. In front of me were the notes I'd taken in class in the loose leaf bundle in which I'd collected what I needed for tests. Oh, it's late. Stop making sounds. According to my alarm clock, which I'd moved to my desk, it was already past midnight. Yeah, it's already past midnight for me too. At school tomorrow, if I didn't get to sleep soon, I wouldn't be able to get up. Although I was studying late like this, it wasn't like the tests were going to begin tomorrow. I couldn't afford to exert myself too much now. I didn't really like studying in the first place. It wasn't like there was a school I wanted to go to after I graduated, and I wasn't thinking about exams yet either, and yet lately I had been staying up late studying. The reason was simple. I don't want to sleep. My chair creaked as I leaned back on it. I let my hands fall listlessly to my sides, but that wouldn't change reality. Yeah, and unfortunately, you can't study in your dreams, even though for Toru's in Toru's case, he probably would be able to retain the studying he would do in a dream would probably retain all of the information from that study session would retain in his mind after he wakes up, I guess. But that wouldn't change reality. I would go to that room if I dreamed. Having gotten Club Prez involved recently, the tea party in that room had gotten even livelier, and it will soon get even livelier because of another character, the fifth character, I guess. I didn't dislike seeing those people there. If the dream just ended with that room, then there would be no problem. The problem was my existence. Just my appearing would be a problem for me, but on top of that, she was involving us in nightmares. Just thinking about how I might have that dream made me feel like my mind was being worn away little by little, whether I was used to it or not. But if I slept, that's where I could end up. It wasn't something to be proud of, but I was never really good at studying. I figured that if I got all worn out from concentrating on my studies, then I wouldn't have the energy to dream, and I'd be able to sleep. Well, that endeavor failed spectacularly. For the past few days, I studied hard before I went to sleep, but last night and the night before that, I ended up right back at the tea party. And then again, I dreamt that time Saki slept over, even though I took one of the pills I got from Club Prez, so I had a vague notion that I wouldn't be able to escape it just because I was tired. Studying like this, knowing how fruitless it would be, it felt like a waste, but I was too stubborn to quit. And at the tea party, we weren't just hanging out lazily like we usually did. As Club Prez had kindly put it,
この時期に勉強時間増えてラッキーだわ。
See, this is the problem, Yoyoi. You don't remember everything. You don't remember anything that happens in the dreams. So, any studying that you would do in the dream, the information from that study session would not retain in your mind in the real world, quote unquote real world. And she started to use that time to cram for her exams. I didn't know exactly how accurate the reference books she brought into the dream were, but the stuff I had learned was at least correct. And Club Prez was smart, but she was also a hard worker who took her studies seriously. Plus, she was a caring person, so she helped me study. And then Saki and Alice had gotten involved, and we all started cramming for exams together. I wonder if that'll happen again today. Well, considering that we haven't seen those study sessions, and now we are going to see this dream, this is going to be different from the study sessions. Probably. I didn't mind that, actually. Maya sometimes showed up out of the blue, but she didn't really bother us when we were studying. In fact, I sort of got the feeling she had a gentle expression on her face as she watched over us. The fact that she looked at me like she was saying, "There's no point in doing that," was certainly just me being paranoid. Then was I selfish for not wanting to sleep despite that? When would we next get caught up in someone's dream? And would it be my dream? So far, everyone had been able to come back, but there was no guarantee that that would continue to be the case. In the end, if it was my dream, would I be able to make it back? Thinking of that made me scared to sleep. Maybe I'll go outside. If I continued to worry in my apartment, it seemed likely I would be confined to unpleasant thoughts, and more importantly, I would get sleepy. Call it trying to escape reality, or rather trying to escape my dreams. I put on my coat and decided to go for a little walk to get away from my current situation. I'm not slacking off or running away. I'm just going to buy some coffee at the local convenience store because I'm tired. Why you got musical notes in this text box? I set out humming half-assedly. When I got to the convenience store, they were out of the coffee I usually drank. Well, you know, variety is the spice of life, or whatever they say. Go for a different one, I guess. It wasn't vital for me to have that exact brand, but I was stubborn and now I had an excuse to go looking for it. I wandered around, seeking my coffee, and next thing I knew, I had come to the front of the train station. I've walked quite a ways. I had finally been able to get what I had been after, but I never thought I'd come this far. On top of that, the sky was looking ominous. It had smelled like a winter storm was approaching for a while now, and when I looked up, the clouds were bulky. I no longer had an excuse for taking a walk, so I figured it was best if I headed home quick. Just as I thought that, the raindrops finally started falling. No good. Well, we got animated raindrops. Of course, I hadn't brought an umbrella. Though it was winter, the rain started coming down hard, all at once. At this rate, maybe it'll ease up soon. You never say that sentence. never say that sentence and expect it to ease up soon. I hurriedly took shelter under the eaves of a nearby building. I leaned against the automatic doors, which weren't opening, and looked up at the sky. It was a cold, sleety kind of rain. I really wasn't in the mood to run home like this, through this. I wish it would ease up at least a little. I gave a small, exasperated sigh. I was a little annoyed at myself for going for a walk because I didn't want to sleep and getting caught in the rain. I would have to sleep eventually anyway. Not sleeping would just cause me to doze off or faint at school again. Was this rain a punishment for something or something? For making excuses and running away despite all that? Well, there's no way the weather would change for one person. It's not like this was a dream. Suddenly a disturbing thought came to my mind and I snapped my fingers. Stop, rain. I willed for it to happen. If this was a dream of mine, the rain would probably stop or weaken, but nothing of the sort happened. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, a figure suddenly entered my field of vision. They must have gotten caught in the rain like me. They didn't have an umbrella, but they carried a large case that looked more than a meter long. It's probably a guitar case because it's fucking Keiko. When I approached the street, I realized who that figure was. Hirosaka.
Senpai desu ka?
Hirosaka walked through the sleety rain, seemingly not minding it at all. What are you doing? Look how hard it's raining. She stopped when I called out to her, so I took her hand and pulled her under the eaves with me. Geez, you're soaking wet. Hirosaka looked away from me more as though it were a hassle than because she felt awkward. The guitar case she was carrying was as wet as she was. Either she didn't care or it was waterproof, because she made no attempt to cover it. What were you doing out this late? Were you singing outside again?
いえ、さすがにこんな時間には歌ってませんでしたけど。
I was relieved to hear that. Public order around here was pretty good. If you frolicked even little, there was a local security company that could be dispatched, but even so, it had its limits. This was no place for a girl to walk around alone at night. For the time being, I'll take you home. I'll have to buy an umbrella at the nearby convenience store. Even if the rain eased up, I didn't want to run through it carrying her guitar. Hirosaka was already soaked to the bone, so we needed an umbrella, if only as a consolation.
いえ、結構です。大丈夫ですから。
Hey, what if something happens to you? I didn't think there would be any weirdos wandering around in the rain, but I was still worried.
その時はその時じゃないですか。
Her apathy annoyed me. It wasn't like I was trying to force her to do it, but it wasn't good for her to care so little about herself.
私のことです。先輩には関係ないことじゃないですか。
I would feel guilty if an acquaintance got caught up in some trouble. You understand that, right? Hirosaka looked offended.
今バカにしませんでしたか。
A little, but anyway, it's late, so go home. I'll forcibly walk you there if I have to. Come on.
無理やり送られても。私、家に入れないので、結局どこかに行くしかないんですけど。
What do you mean you can't get into your house? It was late, but what could she have meant by can't get into her house? Did she run away? Was she thrown out? A plethora of scenarios came to my mind.
鍵、なくしましたから。家に誰もいませんし、今夜は帰ってきません。
Occam's razor. She was surprisingly calm despite the moderate to serious situation she was in. You lost your keys?
はい。なので無理です。
Hirosaka squeezed her guitar case. She didn't look nearly as troubled as her situation demanded. Then what were you planning to do tonight?
さあ。今日はとりあえずその辺でどうにかしようと思ったんですけど。
I looked up at the sky, but it was still gloomy. The rain was a little lighter than it had been, but it was still falling. Is there a manga cafe with a shower around here? Or maybe like a capsule hotel? No, Hirosaka seemed to have a lot of money, so maybe a regular hotel would work.
そんなところがあるんですか?
No, I mean, really, what were you planning to do? I asked again. I didn't know whether she was just unfamiliar with manga cafes, or whether she hadn't thought of anything.
さあ、なるようになったんじゃないですか?
Hirosaka really looked like she didn't care. I thought about just throwing her into a place she could stay the night, and then go home, and then going home. Yeah, and then going home. But unfortunately, I didn't know of any places like that. In my stupid talks with Tetsuya, I'd heard of love hotels, but of course I couldn't take her there.
先輩はおせっかい焼かなくても大丈夫ですよ。お気になさらず。
If I was the kind of person who could not worry after all this, then my life would be much easier. To not worry, how wonderful it would be if I was capable of that. Geez, fine. At this rate, you'll catch a cold. So come to my place and I'll let you use my shower.
先輩の家ですか。だけど、家族がいるんじゃないですか。
I live by myself. What's that face for?
なんでもありません。先輩がどうしてもそうしたいなら、それでいいです。
She looked like she was thinking something bad, but in that case, something bad, but in that case, that was all the more reason not to leave her alone. I heaved a grand sigh, the likes of which I hadn't heaved lately. Then I decided to go buy an umbrella at a nearby convenience store. In the meantime, Hirosaka waited for me, all the while looking like she couldn't care less.